Great, so let's get started. Welcome to today's webinar, Mastering Multi-Touch Attribution in Marketo Engage. Now, I'm sure this is a topic that all of us will be interested in talking about, so any questions that you've got, please drop them in the chat or the Q&A section. I'm sure most of you have used Zoom before, so feel free to throw those comments in as we go along. If you've got any questions straight off the bat, feel free to drop those in also. More than happy to pick those up as we go through this presentation. So I'm James Fletcher. I'm the CEO and a Marketo Solutions Architect, or an Adobe Master, as we're now called under the Adobe terminology. Basically, what that means is I've been around Marketo for about 13 years. There's not very much that I haven't experienced within this platform, and importantly, not connected it to and been able to drive it forward. In this session today, we're going to be talking about multi-touch in action in Marketo Engage. How do we make it work? What are the essential parts of piecing it together? So many of you have probably had that conversation already around, how do we use Marketo to provide us multi-touch? And then we will talk a little bit about why revenue models are such a crucial part of the process. And then we'll have some time for Q&As at the end. Now, this is a 30-minute session. We hope that it's informative. And of course, if you get any questions as we go through, definitely, throw them in the chat and we can then pick them up as we go. So let's get stuck in. The first thing, just to give you a bit of background on JTF Marketing. So we've been around now 6-7 years. We've been helping a range of companies in a range of industries utilize Marketo Engage as a platform. Really, this is everything from your day-to-day execution of campaigns through to MarTech strategy structures. How do we scale what we've got? How do we make marketing operations scale? And then importantly, all of the services around that, custom development, integration, so on and so forth. We've also got a distinct training program, which is focused on different roles. So if you add a new marketing manager in, you offload the training to us, we get them up to speed, and then they're ready to hit the ground running using the tool. We then have a software platform as well for Marketo, which includes some integrations as well as a deduplication tool in order to clean up that database and make sure that you're only paying for the contacts that are unique. So I want to just kick off by talking about what is multi-touch attribution. I think everybody's got a bit of a different idea to, what is it? What does it mean to them? And if we take this Nielsen description, it's pretty clear on what multi-touch attribution is. It's a measurement technique of multiple touch points within the customer journey that allows us to see how have we influenced the sale? How can we prove that marketing is actually adding any value? And of course, give it a fraction of credit based on the revenue that we've generated from those different channels. So why multi-touch attribution? Most of you will be sitting here on the call saying, well, we know why that's why we're here. It's always nice to pedal this back a little bit and think about what are the questions that we get asked. Why are we often quizzed in the boardroom? Why are we asked by our colleagues to prove what we're doing when it's so visible to us because we see those leads coming in? At the end of the day, we're trying to answer these fundamental questions. Where did I get my new leads from? What campaign generated the most MQLs? What is influencing opportunity creation? And importantly, what is the pipeline and closed business from those opportunities that have been created? Now, we've got to look at a couple of different areas in order to get that information. So the first one, where did we generate leads from? Which channel was that? What was it that generated those names? Was it paid media? Was it us going out and sourcing a list of names? Was it the salespeople who are another marketing channel are generating names? What happened? Importantly, then the campaigns. What is the messaging? What is the content? How do we measure that and understand this piece of content works better than that piece? We've tried this angle. We're A/B testing another one to see what performs better than the other. And then importantly, where's the proof? Where's the opportunities that give us the true value of those different activities? Now, just to set expectations a little bit, because multi-touch attribution is a journey. It is not an easy one. There is a maturity curve in this process, and much like you've probably already gone through a maturity curve with your marketing automation platform, or you're some way on that curve at a different stage. The attribution is inherently difficult. It is from a marketing automation perspective. We can launch first and last touch out the box, but to get to that holy grail, there is a long way for us to go. There will be limitations and frustrations along the way, as my diagram on the right shows. And that might be from a technology perspective, it might be from a personnel perspective, or it might even be from a data set perspective. Often that's one of the biggest challenges when we come to starting to build our attribution models. You'll also need expertise and consistency to see any success from a multi-touch attribution program. And that comes in multiple forms: discipline in tracking, discipline on cleaning data, discipline on measuring and looking for exceptions, and importantly, checking that it's actually accurate data, that we're not just pumping anything through in order to make us look good. Finally, nothing happens overnight. Unfortunately, we'd all love it to change overnight. You can do a lot of data cleanup overnight, of course, but what we've still got to look at is the bigger picture, the holistic picture, to see where are we on that journey? Have we improved from where we are? Do we have a story to tell the board? And what does that then look like? Now, there's two methods of attribution. There's semi-automated and there's automated. Now, to dawn on each, we will go into a little bit more detail in a second. Semi-automated is what I believe Marketo Engage can do for you. It means that we're collecting the data from the various activities that we have in the marketing mix. We're attributing success to different program types. And importantly, we're starting to collect that information that will allow us to present a pretty dashboard on top of everything. The automated version, of course, is when you go out and purchase a multi-touch attribution software, and you plug it into your existing systems, and it does a lot of the heavy lifting and cleansing for you in order to get you to the holy grail quicker. Now, depending on where you are with your budget, with your maturity, on that scale of journey, you may not be ready for automated, or you may be way past semi-automated. You might already be there right now. So again, choosing the right one for you is going to be based on your business, on your experience, on your knowledge, and especially where the quality of data that you have. So looking at the semi-automated multi-touch attribution, so I've created this dummy dashboard just to give you a view of what something could look like. As you'll see on the left-hand side here, we've got a funnel on our main stages: net new names, MQLs, sales accepted leads or sales qualified leads, whatever terminology you might use, and then close one. Who have we closed? We've created opportunities. Where did they come from? As you can see from this dashboard, there are some gaps in my data. You'll see that I've got a couple of blue dots here with nothing assigned to them. What does that mean? It means that we can't track it. So when I talk about those frustrations and those irritations of data, these are the parts that we've got to dive deep into and understand what's happening. Why are we losing tracking? Is it the salesperson putting in another opportunity and closing the one that we've got, or creating it before converting the lead? We all know those stories of sales and marketing alignment. Let's not go there. But ultimately, how do we identify the anomalies, and how do we fix the exceptions of this report? And this example shows, obviously, the journey stages. It shows converting channel and campaign. Now, both of those are critical because we want to know, are our webinars working for middle of the funnel or bottom of the funnel? Or is it brochures that we're sending that works? Or is it some of the campaigns that we're doing to engage people through their buying process? And then how do we optimize? Or do we have nothing at all at that stage? Is it all sales engagement? And what do we need to do in order to help better, push those people through that purchase process? Of course, what we're interested here in is also pipeline, close one business. What have we generated, and what's the win rate? And all of this combined, even if you add in some more context, number of days between different stages, will help you then build a predictable marketing model to say, okay, if I go and spend $500,000 in this campaign, I'm expecting to generate $1 million in business. Because X, Y, Z, these are the conversion rates between the stages, or these are the number of days that it's going to take before we close that business. That would be great, right? Of course, there's a range of other metrics, filters you might want to apply here. And again, this is always going to be specific to your business. You're always going to be choosing the metrics that are relevant to you to present. When it comes to automated multi-touch attribution, you of course have the Adobe Marketo Engage visible product, which is fantastic. And the real kind of why would I do that is if you are spending a lot of money on digital ads. This is a kind of must-have if this is what you're going to be looking for. Now, moving on into, what are the necessary steps in order to get this to work? This is the meaty part, right? This is the part that's most important. What have I got to do to make this work? First step is good data hygiene and management. Without a consistent data set, a sanitized data set, a clean data set, you're always going to get muddy data. You're going to get bad reports. You're not going to get out what you want. The most important thing when it comes to data is status fields. This is overlooked many times in CRM projects, especially. That status field of where the lead is through the process, or even where the prospect is in the opportunity ribbon, is critical because it will help us drive people through this journey and understand, have we progressed someone, or what have we done with those leads? We'll give you that visual of the database as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about revenue models. Now, the second part is strict and consistent processes. So I mentioned this up front. There's a few things here that are really critical to make a success of multi-touch attribution within Marketo. We're talking the semi-automated version of attribution, of course. And that is that the channels and tags are up to date in Marketo. You're not using the out of the box. You've customized them for the different channels that you have active, the different ways that you wish to track your campaign. So whether it's a email promo campaign with a discount voucher versus an informational or services email, or it might be paid media, it might be direct mail, it might be PR, whatever it might be, you're going to want channels and tags set up relevant in order to help you track success. The second part of this, and I'm really honing in on this section, we're going to look at a couple of examples in a second. Second part is program templates with cost periods. Now, most of you, I'm pretty sure, are not using any cost periods in Marketo, or very few. They are critical in seeing cost per success, and importantly, starting to look at what is successful when it comes to analyzing the program performance, cost per success, cost per new name, etc. Those program templates are always going to help you as well get the structure right, make sure that you've got your tracking in place, make sure that you've got your forms set up correctly, your progression statuses as well, to make sure that you're tagging people with the right statuses. And then there's kind of this last piece, which is super critical, which is bug-free or best practice email and landing page templates, which are allowing you to capture the information correctly, helping you convert and focusing you in on what works and what doesn't. And that's important when it comes to A/B testing as well. Now, from an acquisition revenue model perspective, this is also pretty critical. Now, I talk about this all the time, and if you've joined any of our other webinars, you'll have heard me talk about revenue models over and over again. For me, this is the best way of visualizing the database to understand, okay, how many people do we have in our database and where are they in the buying cycle? It allows us to optimize our sales messaging. It allows us to optimize personalization from a campaign perspective as well. Where are they in the buying cycle? What kind of messaging do I need to serve them? And importantly, it's going to give us the data triggers to capture the last touch campaign at each stage of that journey. So if we move someone from a known person to an MQL, we will then capture that information. What was the last engagement that made them convert? How do we understand that? How do we start to do more with that? Then we start looking at reporting, right? So there's multiple tiers of reporting. Let's start with the most obvious. The first one is exception reporting, which you're going to do, I guess, a majority of the time, either in Marketo or in Salesforce or Dynamics, depending on your CRM. And you're going to be using that information to see, oh, I've got a missing field here, or I haven't tagged that. Why was that not tagged? And you can optimize your model. As I say, it's going to take some time to keep optimizing. And then from that data set, you can present that in a business intelligence tool. So whether it's Tableau, whether it's Power BI, whether it's Google Data Studio, whatever it might be, that will then allow you to do that. Now, the fundamental piece of making all of this work together is the knowledge and expertise, not only of marketing technology, but multi-touch attribution. How are we going to get this structured? How do we make sure that we're collecting the data correctly? And how do we utilize that data set as well? So let's jump into Marketo. I want to show you just a couple of examples of how I'm collecting the data and how I've structured Marketo in order to make my life easier, first of all. So let me swap screens here, and hopefully you can all see that. If I jump into my marketing activities here on the left-hand side in my tree, I've got an attribution folder under data hygiene and management. And you'll notice two things. I've got some trigger-based campaigns, and I've also got some historic cleanup campaigns, which I always name with a H at the start, just to make it easier for me. And if I jump into the MQL one, what you'll see here is I'm using the revenue stages change. So I'm layering up the complexity by saying I've got a revenue model in place. People are moving through that revenue model. And when they move stage, I want to, under my flow steps, capture information into custom fields that are built up to capture the campaign, the channel. In my revenue model, I'm already capturing the date and time that people move through those different stages. So actually, I don't need to do much else. When it comes to most recent campaign, most of you will be aware that this already exists in Marketo. Most recent channel is something I've then set up. Now, how have I set that up? I've actually used some of my campaigns to help me drive that. Now, when I talk about my campaigns, I'm talking about my program templates that I've configured, because the way in which we set up best practice program templates in Marketo is give them a naming convention that makes sense. So in this case, when we're talking about webinars, for example, I've got WBN for webinar, which means if the last campaign contains WBM, I know that the most recent channel was a webinar. If that person registers for that webinar, however, through, let's say, social media, maybe my channel might be slightly different. So again, you've got to think of the nuances there in terms of how you structure it together. Now, I'll show you very quickly the historic stuff, because it got quite fun as we were tidying up some of the dummy data to show you. Now, if I look at my flow steps, there's a couple of ways in which you can clean up your data and sanitize it. And you'll see here, right? So I've got an add choice here and a change data value where my original referrer is one of the social platforms, or it's a GCL ID from Google AdWords, or it's a search engine, or it's a web page, et cetera. So again, mapping those out first of all before you start building anything is pretty critical. It will allow you also to see what works and what doesn't. Now, as I say, these are really just some quick tips on how do we get there. When we start thinking about exception reporting, of course, we can go into a lot more detail and start thinking about, how do we get that information out, and how do we present it? How do we want to present it back to the business? Now, how can we help you do that? As I mentioned at the beginning, we're a specialist marketing automation consultancy business. We know quite a lot about multi-touch. Of course, multi-touch is going to be specific to you in terms of how you want to deploy it, whether it's a U shape, a W shape, linear, whether you want to, weight the first touch point versus the last touch point. It will all be specific to you, and there's a bit of a process to go through to understand that. We can also talk you through the options for multi-touch attribution. So whether a visible is right for you, or whether you've got to start building up your business case in order to work towards a fully automated multi-touch attribution program. We can also help you with the data quality and understanding, where is the best place to start? How can we get that right? And then we can help you launch or advance your current multi-touch program. So if you haven't got one, we can help you identify what you need to do in order to get there and get it working. And importantly, we can also, support you in enhancing what you've already got. So if you've got first and last touch, that's brilliant. What we've then got to do is start thinking about how do we contextualize that into the entire customer journey. If you require some additional information about multi-touch attribution, feel free to get in touch with us. More than happy to have a chat with you, give you some advice. If there's anything we didn't cover, please let us know. and we'll be more than happy to, cover those questions that you've got. Hit us up on social media, or, get in contact by email. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you on our next webinar.